Hello, everyone. Welcome here at Your World or Mine. Show me yours and I'll show you mine. And today we have beautiful Cher here. And I'm not going to tell you where she's from. She's not on my planet, by the way. And as you know, I'm visiting Earth. And I'm really having such fun having all these amazing and extraordinary experiences with you women and you men. And we are fascinated about what's happening currently on Earth. Now, Cher, you've got an interesting name. Somebody told me that's the singer's name as well. Is that true?
Yes, I was named after a famous singer, Cher. But don't ask me to sing. I wish I had her voice.
But you know, funny enough, look at this synchronicity. I'm also called after a famous opera singer, not a rock
Yeah,
star, but an opera singer
yeah,
who had to go to Europe, part of your earth, and your world to become famous. It was
yeah,
very interesting. So
yeah,
that we both, and I did sing a little bit when I was young, and I had my
yeah.
own little rock band, by the way.
Fantastic. Wow.
But through the years, you just stop singing. You know, it's very interesting.
Well, I'm trying to sing. I'm trying to because it's something that I always was told from young that I couldn't sing, and so I never sang. And somebody encouraged me, especially the youngsters today. They're all playing instruments and singing, and I was like, oh, I wish I could sing. And this friend of mine said, but you can. And and so I've been trying to sing. I can't say I'm a singer, but it's so releasing. It's so beautiful to just express yourself through song,
Oh, you
even if
know,
it's in the shower.
and everyone sings in the, most people at least sings in the shower from our understanding. You know,
Yeah,
it immediately raised something very interesting that actually I wanted to explore with you today. And it is this thing, and you said people said you couldn't sing. And I, when I was little, wanted to dance on the tables. That's all I wanted to do, and also express and perform and things like that. And my mom didn't believe in this dancing thing as well. She made me learn to play the piano, which I'm very grateful for, but it wasn't me. So when I was like
yeah,
12, I coaxed my dad into buying me a guitar. And then that took off on its own journey. But you're really mentioning something very important here today of being told that you are not good in something or that it's not for you, which leads me really to this thing about authenticity, you know, of
yes,
who are we? And you know, on our
yeah,
planet, we're discovering more and more that it's not about the becoming thing. You have to become a singer, for example. You
mm,
are a singer at heart, and
yeah,
you maybe just didn't stimulate it or ignite that and had the opportunity now to stimulate and strengthen it, and to actually do it
yeah,
because
yeah,
you didn't have the support.
yes,
So, well, how do you think that influenced your life? That fact that somebody said a simple thing like that, which is actually a huge thing,
yes,
because they denied you to express one of your gifts.
yes. I think I was born very much in a time of my generation was all about wanting to achieve. And I know from my family, they were all very instrumental. We would play guitar and violin and all sorts of things. And suddenly that changed. It stopped. And the focus from my family towards me was about being academic. You know, focus on your academics. You won't make money with playing this or doing dance or and there were also financial constraints about I had to give up piano. I played piano for many years. I had to give up guitar because you know the teacher we couldn't afford or something. Um, but in retrospect, I then did focus on my academics and um, and did forge a really good career. But then that part of me was left behind. I didn't develop myself in the arts, say. Although I did indulge, talking about opera, I always took the opportunity to go and see an opera or a ballet because that's really what I love. But about 10 years ago, later in life, I discovered dance. And I've been dancing for 10 years now. And I do a dance called conscious dance, which is, or movement medicine. There's two forms, which is a very spiritual, beautiful, expressive movement where there's no rules. It's really just allowing the music to move you and to work through where you are stuck in your body to move it out. And that changed my life. It really did. At a later age in life, I was able to go back to a discipline that I had left behind because of, you know, the story. And actually, it was the perfect timing because now I had more time, and I religiously go to my dance class once a week, and I love it. And you know, it's similar to, I don't know if you've ever, I'm sure some people do have this experience when you've turned off the lights in your house and you've put the music up and you've just danced in your room or your lounge. You just let the music take over. And this is pretty much like that. You get an opportunity to be in a class of other people who are just doing the same. So it's really freed me, and it's so wonderful.
Wow, you know, it's really amazing that you mentioned that, because in my own experience on my planet, we also have something called movement medicine and conscious dancing, all different types of conscious types dancing. And maybe just for other people's interest and to make it more clear for them, conscious dancing is not something woo-woo, you know, it's you're becoming aware of your body. Now, I've been a dancer most of my life. When I was little, I was not allowed to dance. But then when I was a teenager, I took my own journey into adulthood with dancing in my own way. I went through many different dancing disciplines and modalities. And also, I was dancing professionally on the stage, ballroom and Latin dancing on my planet,
Wow.
like performance dancing, like display dancing, what we
Yes.
called it for a long time. I danced 5 nights a week at that time. After work, I'd go dancing. But it was only in
Fantastic.
conscious type dancing that I discovered something very interesting. That I was dancing outside of my body for 2 or 3 decades.
Yes.
Not inside my body, which is very different. And that's where the conscious part comes in, the awareness part comes in, of you inside your body. It's not this performance thing, because anybody can learn how to perform, but to really feel this inside of the music starts moving, like you said earlier, moving you. And neither is wrong. Like the performance thing is wonderful. It's wonderful. You also get this exuberant feeling out of that. So there's actually nothing wrong with that. It's just something very different when you start dancing on a conscious level in your body.
Yeah, I think the key for me was getting out of the head, because we spend in our world is a very, very linear world where we have to use logic all the time. And when you dance, as in a traditional dance practice, you would have to use your head because you'd have to remember the steps, or you'd have to remember this. Eventually it becomes flow once you get it all. And that's when you really embody it. But a lot of the time it's stuck in ego because you need to perform to be seen, or whatever the motivation is. Whereas conscious dance takes away, it strips the ego away, and you start really going into embodying yourself and honoring your own body. And that's expressed beautifully when you've got a room full of like 40 people all moving rapidly around the room in their own movement. You know, some people really express themselves, and you never bump in. It's very rare that you actually bump someone, and that just shows that we're all in flow. The entire room is in a state of flow, and that's quite a magical, heightened experience to have.
Yeah, you know, what fascinates me is also I've had experience on your planet once during one of my visits, where I was in the US, in Seattle, and it was actually Vancouver. I think it was Vancouver in Canada, yeah, where I was invited to this expressive dance thing.
Oh.
And that fascinated me because when I just hear the word dance, I'm there. You know, I was like that for a very long time. I would never even look what it's about, but it was wonderful. For 4 hours in a huge room, beautiful wooden floor, no instructions, absolutely no instructions. Just the music moved you. And again, there was lots of people. But the beautiful thing was, again, nobody bumped into each other. And it was my first time. And nobody explains anything to you. Yes. And the extraordinary things that happened was that you would go and sit down when you were tired, because 4 hours is quite a long time to be moving like that all the time. And then you just sit there. And my experience was, I was not even aware of the other people.
I've lost you for a second.
Yeah, I said, I was not even aware of the other people when I went to sit down. You could go sit down whenever you wanted, when you were tired. Are you still with us?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I just lost you for a second. Yeah.
No problem. You see, that's what happened. I think what is so beautifully also now for everybody watching this or listening to this in the future, what just happened, there was this gap now where Cher couldn't hear me.
Yes.
And that's what happened
Yes.
with me when I was in this expressive dancing thing. Because you were moving, and at some stage your body was guiding you to go and sit down for a bit. You were not tired, but you just went to lie down or sit down. And you were completely unaware of other people. It was just you.
Yes.
And like you say, magically you wouldn't bump into anybody. Nobody would fall over you wherever you were sitting. You could sit in the middle of the room and nobody would dance over you. Now, as a professional dancer, I had it many times where if the person who's leading doesn't lead you right, you'd bump into other people. But with conscious dance, you don't have to worry about that. It's all perfect, like you're moving now. So we can move with you in the room.
Yes. Yes.
Which is beautiful. It's really beautiful. And it also brings up a
Yeah.
very interesting other experience I personally had, also in the US, in Los Angeles, when we were doing what was called evolutionary dance. Now, the fascinating part here was, again, no instructions. We started on our bellies on the floor, dark. The room was completely dark. And the music guided us what to do. We didn't know. Nobody told us. And we went through the development stages of being human.
Wow.
From the amoeba, and you were not looking at anybody else. Your body knew what to do. It was fascinating. And slowly, the light would come on, slowly. But the most fascinating part was in the end, when we started dancing the more developing parts of the human, naturally speaking through the music, no instructions, where we were dancing in groups. And again, there was not looking where will I go to. You just found yourself in a group and you were all acting in the same way. And the different groups all acted differently.
Yes.
It was fascinating.
Wow, that's incredible.
It's incredible, but that's also a type of conscious dancing.
Yes.
And,
yes,
and that was the result of something we went through ourselves. You know, we were there for 21 days doing this thing to learn about this energetic practice and way of living, and the language of energy, by the way. And then we lived it out through the music. It was just fascinating.
Yes.
But you know what I want to bring this back to is this thing about being you. And there's no right and wrongs for us on our planet. Like, everybody just have an experience. And to know that you have options, you can choose any moment.
Yes.
But when we really discover now with all the information available, which is at the time that we were younger, me and you, that there was not all this information available. The technology wasn't there that we could now speak and relate like this to you with be and just like be with each other.
Yeah, my friend says there's too much information. We need more inspiration.
Well, you see, but for me, it goes back even before both of those two things.
Yes.
That when we start, we don't have to take 30, 40 years to discover that we can sing or we can dance. We don't have to do that. The sooner we start to live out this flaming side of us, whatever way it wants to be expressed, that we don't have to become something, like we have to become adopted. So you have to go and study to become a role. Is in that moment when you were little and you loved dancing or you loved music, whatever it might have been. It doesn't need to be an art. It could be something completely different. You love to work with your hands. Or you simply just want to entertain people. Doesn't matter what it is that the sooner you discover that, the less drama you'll have in the rest of your life. You don't have to struggle to survive. You can thrive. Yes. And that comes to the inspiration part that you just mentioned. Yes. So with all this information, yes, it can be quite challenging. What do you do with all this stuff first?
Absolutely. And it's to embody it, you know, really embody it.
Yeah, and to decide, this is good for me, and this is actually not so good for me in this moment. But tomorrow it might be, but now it's not. Yes. And you bring up the word embodiment, which I like, because that now helps us, no matter of our age, to decide whether something feels good to us.
Yeah.
When we start feeling what it is to be in that role, to be with that person, to see what actually doesn't feel so good to be with this person. But on the internet was easy because there was no real, no real physical connection.
Yes.
An opportunity to really feel each other. So on the internet, you might have been in a group online where you feel comfortable, And suddenly when you meet a person in real life, you just know something is not good yet.
It's not right.
And it's
Yes.
not right. And it's not about the other
Yes.
person, it's about you. It's never
You.
about
Yeah.
them.
Yes.
And people like yourself can inspire others, especially with the ones who came more recently. We prefer to call them more recently than young ones, to inspire instead of all inform. And that the information actually comes from within rather from externally.
Yes, yes. Yeah, it's again, it's realizing that the opportunities of the internet has opened up the information gateway. So we all have access to any kind of information and networking. It's a wonderful community building facility. However, that personal touch, what you said, is so important because that's been lost in a way. But I think if one realizes that this is just a tool, that technology is a tool, it's information that we can use, but we can't forget the everyday connections, how important that is. I hate to talk about negative things, but it's that I had old neighbors and we would have tea and coffee every day. They were elderly people and they passed on. And now I have young neighbors and they just about greet me. You know, your neighbors, even though you don't maybe want to make friends with them, one should definitely have a relationship with them because they're closest to your home. Maybe we don't need to lend milk and sugar these days, but we need to keep an eye out for each other. We need to build communities, and it starts with your neighbor. So yeah, it's definitely a fine line that we have to realize now that it's a tool. But they say that any new technology has its lifespan where there's like an industrial revolution, and the smartphone technology now has had like I think a 15-year lifespan now, and you know that's just explaining it's new, it's all new. So this young generation that has grown up with this technology and their whole world has been sort of documented online, perhaps it's going to be a struggle for them to find how to develop real relationships. But it also then comes from home. It comes from what you learn from your home environment. And different cultures certainly teach that in different ways. I've experienced that with traveling. Last year was an interesting one when I was in, I lived with the Maasai tribe in Kenya. And they still, you know, are very, very, I don't like the word primitive, but the word, you know, they don't use a lighter, for example. I gave them a lighter to light a fire and they were like, no. They prefer to use 2 sticks. It was quicker for them and more of a ritual. But they have cell phones. So the introduction of cell phones has then also changed the community a lot. But the sense of we was so profound. So even though they had cell phones to communicate, at night, everybody came together and everybody spoke about their day, all around this beautiful fire. And their question to me wasn't really about this or that. They were like, who do you eat dinner with? That was important. Who do you have your meal with? And I think that's where where we can build our communities again, where we sit together and we eat together. We build, you know, rituals around food, around how we communicate with each other, rather than always just being online and saying hi, you know. So we need to go back to basics in a way. And even to the most sophisticated societies in London, again, there's you know, there's a loneliness that is bred from this disconnect. And there again, people are going back to building small communities within that metropolis of chaos. Going back to, you know, the dance communities, the drum communities. So it doesn't change. Technology changes, but yet on this planet, we still need each other to survive.
You know, you mentioned something interesting about the community building. So there's 2 things that immediately comes up is the traveling thing. That yes, I can sit in front of a television on your planet and watch a beautiful travel program, but it's only when I'm really there as a nomad myself, traveling across many dimensions and planets and possibilities, is that watching something on television or on the internet is one thing. I'm becoming aware of it, but I'm not becoming to know it. It's two very different things. To really know and understand something, you actually have to physically be there. And it also, it's not even like I flew into many airports, quick in and out. That doesn't mean I've been there. It means I've used the airport. But the places where I've been to, where I've had interactions with other beings, whether it was on the street, and that's fascinating for me because I think in your country, I find it very interesting when I go running in the morning. That it's extremely difficult that when you do that in some cases in the US somewhere, here in your country, people would greet me, the local people would stop, would become friends. When they see me running the same route every day, they would cheer me on next to the road.
Lovely.
It's incredible.
Lovely.
It's incredible. But then if I go to other parts of the world, the people don't even, you just smile at them. I don't know what they think, but they think maybe she's onto me or something. I don't know. But it's a completely different experience. So I learn a lot more about them than watching some program on television or the internet. Because now I see, oh, wow, they're not used to this. And I've also been told in some countries, like in Spain, for example, one of your countries on earth, that the way I communicate with other people makes it very difficult for them to understand what type of relationship I want with them, because I'm so open and transparent. And they're not used to that. So for them, it's what's going on here? Because she's doing it with everybody. So is she flirting with everybody? What's going on? But it's one of those things that I can only really experience. If you just told me about it, it would have been, oh, whatever. But when I went through it myself, I had first to deal with it as well, because I'm now in their space. And to stay myself is wonderful. I will never ever not be myself, but it's also to have the respect, okay, they're not used to this, and just to have that deeper understanding, and then to go beyond that you go beyond the cultural stuff. It's being them. And then it's wonderful because all those fears that's created like that dissipate, they disappear by itself. So thank you for mentioning that. So it's also encouragement. Yes, we know there's climate change issues. We don't just want to fly all over the world. But it is really when we do make the effort to get to know other people.
Yes, absolutely. I think what's most important I've traveled a lot, and what I've learned is when we physically go somewhere else, we are almost like our third person objective. Now we're not with our job, with our role, we're not in that role. We're outside of that role. So we're almost seeing, because people now are curious about you. They're asking questions. Where are you from? What's your country like? So they get to see you in a different light, and you get to also give your best impression of yourself, I suppose, because you are now talking about yourself or your country. And so you get to observe yourself in a different light. And that's such a healthy thing, because every time I come home, I see myself differently. I see my environment differently. I appreciate things, in a better way, because I realize the things we complain about and are not happy about, other countries experience in a worse way, or they may experience things that we in a better way. And yet, as you say, they're lacking so much in the smiles on the people on the street. And traveling does link us, because it does help you understand different cultures and understand different people. And that's been a blessing. But I also am privileged, because I have a guest house. I get a lot of people coming to me from all over the world. And it's lovely to have that understanding that different cultures do have different quirks, the way they deal with things, the way they understand things. I know with, for example, a Dutch person, I can be very direct, can say things, and they won't be offended or anything. I can just, and we can laugh and chat afterwards. Take an Englishman, for example, and he might, you have to be very sensitive and then say, no, we'll have a cup of tea, So it's just being polite and being able to understand the thresholds of dealing with people, but also more importantly, yourself. And with each place that you go to, you seem to thread the world together in understanding the cultures, because sometimes we have an opinion about a place because maybe they've done something that we don't like in our own country, but yet when you go there and you meet the everyday man, they're beautiful. And that's the thing, is that we put people in one story box because of the media or something we've heard. But actually every country has got its own unique story, and every person, you know, is not their politics.
You know, I find it fascinating with social media, especially now because it's blown everything open and people can, it's a forum where people can for the first time really speak out. But what I really, it's fascinating for me, it's when people go on about another country or their leaders or the people or what celebrities, what might, doesn't matter what it is. The first question I always ask, have you been there yourself? Have you been there yourself? Have you experienced these people? Because I myself have also traveled a lot into places like Turkey, at times where there were bombings and things going on.
Yes,
and people would be frantic. How can you go there? Are you going to get hurt? And you know, I was in one stage in Turkey, in Istanbul, when the bomb went off a block away.
Were you there? I was also there 2 years ago when the bomb went off.
Yeah, it was a block away from where I was actually staying. And,
oh my goodness.
But it was fascinating because it didn't trouble me at all, because and it didn't trouble the people around me either. It was not that they all went into chaos. It was the people outside that went into chaos, not the people who were actually really there. But it also, it teaches me a big lesson of allowance and acceptance. When we allow others to be who they are and accepting them for who they are and just be ourselves, we have a much nicer time. And there's no need to decide, oh, you're wrong and I'm right, or what you do is wrong. It really brings me back to what we discovered is called the sameness thing. And we really don't know where it came from. We're really quite interested to discover where the sameness thing came from, because, and there most probably are 1,000 different influences on it, but the fact that we also say we're unique, but people must think the same things as we do. We must agree on things. It doesn't even make sense, because it is in that diversity where there's so much joy and fun and really a time to learn about each other and to just watch. For me, the best thing to do is to watch, to sit somewhere and just watch the people.
Yes. A lot of people actually, the adversities come through rejection, come through, you know, people behave badly often because of something is wrong. Something is wrong within them, or something is wrong in the environment. And not judging is such a powerful thing, because we need to understand more. And it's, you know, it's easier said than done, but the more you get into your center space of what's important to you, and that you're not inflicting your ideas on somebody else of what you think should be. And I know when we're younger, we're trying to forge ahead in life, and so then opinions become very important. And we're very good at forcing our opinion. I mean, I've done that many times also. But I've learned, maybe it's a thing of getting older, that I've just learned to listen more and to allow more, and realize that people react from their circumstances, and it's not, we shouldn't be judging, but we can enlighten. We can live, you know, there's a saying like, be the change. It's so powerful. It's so powerful to just be the change. I mean, years ago when I opened up my guest house, I'm not advocating that people should be vegetarian, or I'm not vegetarian. I was for many years, but
Cher, I just lost you there for a moment.
People with advocating eating things that are better for us, better for the environment, and that is not cruel. And then people said at the time, which was more than 10 years ago, you're going to close down. You know, nobody's going to accept that. And those days, it wasn't a trend. It wasn't popular. Now it's very popular. You get vegan restaurants all over the place. But by bringing that policy in, it really attracted a lot of people that were aware. And they may be meat eaters, but they are understanding that yes, we need to do more. We need to help animals more. We need to be more conscious about their plight. And so that would stimulate conversations around how do you live your life? What do you eat? You know, because what you eat is so important. It's your body. Where does that come from? So that was a decision I made a long time ago, and which was a risk because people would say, oh, you know, the English love their bacon and eggs. They're never going to stay at your guest house. Well, I've had many English people stay here, and we offer substantial breakfast, but it's a conscious breakfast. And yeah, 10 years later, we're still in business.
So there's two questions I have for you. I'm really interested in why did you start the guest house in the first place? And the other one is that we can maybe explore together as well, about conscious eating. So what is it about a guest house? Why do you enjoy having guest houses? Or sharing that opportunity to people to come to a beautiful space. Maybe they're on business quick, or maybe on holiday, doesn't matter. What is it for you personally?
Yes. I was very fortunate because I had, as I said, a successful career in the IT world many years ago. And I also ended up working for an NGO, for SPCA, with animals. So I'd had a full career. I felt very satisfied with what I had achieved in my corporate and NGO career. And I just got to a point where I felt like I didn't want to work for anyone. And I decided, well, I'm going to open up a guest house and see. The main reason was that I thought I would do it for 2 or 3 years. And it was really just a challenge to upgrade the house. I had this old Victorian house, and I built it, I renovated it all myself. And the overall objective was to have more time. I wanted to have a career where I could choose my hours better than working 9 to 5. Well, when it first happened and I got more time, I was completely unraveled. Yeah, I would finish breakfast 11 o'clock. Now I had the whole day till the next day. And it's not like that every day when I get with the guest house, but you know, a lot of the time you have time. And in the beginning, because we're so used to being controlled by the clock of being busy, I couldn't be unbusy. It was very difficult for me to learn to, okay, now you've got time. What are you going to do with your time? I don't have that problem anymore, but it did take about a good 6 months to settle my mind and my thoughts into being okay with maybe spending the day painting or spending the day in the mountain walking, that it's okay to have time. We all think about it, that yes, that's what we want, but when we actually get it, it takes creativity and it takes something within yourself to push and motivate yourself to do something that's just relaxing or productive. And I did continue a lot of my NGO work. I've worked a lot in the townships with young kids and animal welfares, and so I've continued that passion. But I must say the most beautiful thing is I get to meet the most incredible people. I'm so privileged to have morning conversations at the breakfast table with some of the greatest minds on the planet that really have inspired me. And again, no box, you know, no box. I've had some of the greatest poets from Limpopo. I've had the most incredibly intelligent, bright, amazing men that I met from Kenya. The best parents I ever met were from Denmark, men. You know, so there's no box. There's no box. The world shows you that everybody is unique in their own way.
Oh, that's beautiful. For me personally, if I think of a guest house, it's somewhere away, usually from home. And for me, the beauty of it is that personally for myself, when I was also still in such a world that you were describing earlier, that even when you traveled and you stayed in a guest house, that it was creating a little nest for you to be yourself and to also disconnect from the rest of the world. And yes, maybe at 10 o'clock you'll go out into the world and do your thing, maybe not. Maybe you'll go and walk on the beach or wherever you are in the mountain, doesn't matter where it is. But it gave you opportunity to come to a safe, beautiful space where you could just be you. That if you are in this very busy world where you have to do this rushing thing, that it somehow, on the subconscious level, gives you that space to just relax. And now we're connecting that to your bringing up the thing about conscious eating. Now with the young people, the people who came more recently, the journeys we do with them, we go through fascinating experiences, and it's very interesting to see what happens when playfully, it's very creative and playful, you start to eat conscious. Just a way at how you connect to the food. And then it's very interesting what happens with you when you stop eating consciously. And also when you stop eating foods that your body was telling you, wow, I like this experience. Because your body starts responding to you when you eat it.
Yes.
And you also feel it in your lightness of being. That in your lightness of being, when I refer to that, I mean you don't feel heavy and depressed and things like that, and dark. It's that the food actually helps you when you are in such spaces to come out of it, because you start eating consciously, and somehow something happens that brings you more into equilibrium, that you feel more balanced. But for us, the fun is when you have a lot of people together and you blindfold them. So they don't see with their usual sense, like when we eat, usually we see and then we will taste. And depending on our level of our sensibilities, activation, and how often we use them, you really experience the crunch in your mouth. You really crunched on a piece of just freshly baked bread with hot butter on it, and that crunchy part of the crust in your mouth, that then you will hear it and you will feel it as well. But the fun part is when you are blindfolded and food's put in front of you. Suddenly, obviously, your sense of smell quadruples immediately, because, whoa, you have to now smell, make a connection with the food that way. But then it's very interesting that you start using your different senses to eat. And what I mean by that is the eating experience. So it's not just gulping down food because you're hungry. It's a tiniest thing as well. It's not a quick thing. But the wonder of it is that suddenly you realize you're eating through hearing, not tasting.
Wow,
for example. But what that does for you in the end, if you start using, and conscious eating is just one of them. But when you start mixing your senses like that through experience, it's not something you just decide today, tomorrow I'm going to do it, because it's a process, a natural process within ourselves. We discovered in the body and in the brain as well, that suddenly you have one sense, not 5 physical senses. And that one sense work together, which creates this amazing experience for you. That once you're outside of it, you cannot, it's actually hard then to eat, because wow.
It's
not
food.
It's not food. And the types of food as well. It's not healthy food. It's like vegetables in a plastic bag in the shop. It's not the same when you eat that and when you eat vegetables that comes from the soil that's fresh. It's two very different things.
Absolutely. I'm very lucky because, well, my family comes from Montenegro. That's a little country next to Croatia, because most people don't realize it or don't know it. And I go home once a year. And it's so profound what you're saying, because their food is a way of life. It's a European Mediterranean lifestyle, and known as one of the healthiest foods, way of eating. And there, you'll see the animals on the land. They are roaming the land, walking free. The pigs, everything is free. They don't have factories. They don't have all the pesticides and all that. It's organic food. It's real slow life, slow food. And what's particularly incredible is in the town where my family live, it's a little seaside village. Everywhere you walk, there's edible fruit and herbs and vegetables. Everywhere. You could just walk up a pathway and there's a fig tree, there's an olive tree. It's like food is way of life. And I wish they would do that all over the world. Imagine you could walk around the city and just pick yourself a nice apple or something. It's really lovely. And the food tastes so real. It's that freshness. They have tomatoes. The meaning, the word for tomatoes in Montenegrin is paradise. And it truly is a paradise. Eating a tomato is like the best fruit you've ever had. It's sweet and delicious. And it's really, yeah, the taste is unique. And that's why I'm always preaching to my staff who come from different parts of the world. You know, this pop story that's all over Africa. Everybody's eating pop, but it's got no nutrients, and it's not originally from Africa. It's maize. It's from South America. But the value that they do have, I must say, having grown up a portion of my life with an Indian family, where they eat with their hands, and that's what you were talking about, the sensory process. In the hands, when you eat with your hands, you have all your chakra bases that are on the palm. And by eating consciously, slowly with your hands, you're embodying that whole process. And I know not everybody's going to go with that, but try it once in a while. It's really satisfying. It's really satisfying.
It will be very fun, and that's what we also do in some of our journeys. We do these crazy, what other people would call crazy things. We would go to the Cape Grace, and then what you now suggest, eat with the hands.
Yes. Why not? I do it. I do it.
No, but I'm just saying, and it's incredible then to watch how other people's responses to it.
Yeah.
And some of them then wants to try it as well. And then once they do, it's quite fascinating.
It's the best way to, yes, it's the best way. As I said earlier, you know, we make stories from roles of society, of how we should be and shouldn't be, but we've forgotten what's actually important. You know, what the nutrients is the most important. The soil where it comes from is equally important. The way the animals, if you're going to eat animals, you know, how have they lived their life? Have they had and all this consciousness, to me, it's once you start embodying it, you start bringing it into your everyday life. You start looking at people in a different way. You start understanding animals in a different way. You know, a thing I develop regularly is my sixth sense. I try to understand how I fit into this world from a sensory perspective. So sometimes in your house, put your lights off and walk around your house, because we get accustomed, we get rhythmic in our expectation of how life is. But when we start stimulating other parts of ourselves, you know, a lot of our cells start dying because we don't stimulate. That's age. That is the actual definition of age, is that we're living a routine lifestyle, so we don't stimulate other parts of the brain. Learning a foreign language or doing things in another way. I was recently driving in Montenegro on the other side of the road, on the other side of the car, and it was a huge challenge, but I could feel all the neurons in my head just firing up, because I suddenly had to really focus. And that's developing another sense. It's so important to keep fresh in your world by being aware all the time.
Now, you know, that brings me to a very interesting thing as well. I've had that same experience with driving in another country, where drive on the other side of the road was an automatic car at that time, which I've never driven before. So my left foot continuously wanted to look for this pedal, and it's not there. It was this hit and run type driving. And like you say, again, I was completely ripped out of my usual experience, which was wonderful and quite funny. And really humorous to go around the bend the other way, because you have to use a complete different part of your brain. But what we've discovered in exploring all these human capacities is that the ones who came more recently, different parts of their brains are activated, their mine and yours.
Yes.
And it would take me and you much longer to activate those parts, because of, like we said, we get into this rut of this is the way we act, this is the way we think, this is the way we do things, and this is how we relate to people and creatures and the whole world, for that matter. But now it's a very interesting flip side, because what's been discovered is that with the ones who came in more recently, there's different parts of their brains activated. That's why so many young ones these days have issues in the current educational systems.
Yes.
Because their brains work very different. And now the interesting part is you sit with the society, Where the ones that's been here longer, just think they know it all, and that's the only way. And they get scared about things that the young ones don't experience because of technology, being born into a technological world online, but not considering on the other side, so it's half information sort of, that on the other side, being born into such a society has developed other parts of their brains, not firstly, that's activated and developed all the time. You just think of reactionary time when they play games. Now, for me, it would be horrifying for somebody to sit all day in front of a computer playing games because I want to be in nature. That's me.
Yes.
But it doesn't need to be everybody else. But
yeah.
if you go back and you go and look at what's really happening with them on other levels, it's fascinating to see where humanity is evolving towards because of all the discoveries and the developments. Because you would, for example, a skill that they really need today in that environment, because it's a very different environment that we grew up. We could be in the trees, we could do whatever we want outside. And not that they can't do it, but they're not guided towards that these days, or they're not made aware of it, is, for example, a skill like responsiveness. Now, if you just think in a game, they go into this virtual reality and they have to respond very quickly. And the mind and the body connection is actually very strong because that reactive time between the brain and the hand handling this stick of the game, or whether it's on computer, doesn't matter what it is so quick because it needs to be quick because suddenly there's something else in front of you. You need to react to it.
Yes.
So I think humanity is only learning now that there's all these different capacities now that's being activated and being stimulated, which is useful for the environment that's currently here.
Yes.
And to balance these two parts. The one who was more nature-based outside, perhaps, but also very hectic, where the other one is actually very calm here in what's in front of me. So
you're passive, you're receiving.
Yeah, you're passive, but then you go into this thing and you really become active in this thing. And with virtual reality technology these days, you actually use your senses as well, which is fascinating by itself.
Yes.
Because you're not really there, but you start. I had such an experience in Japan last year at Mount Fuji.
Wow.
Where we couldn't go up into the mountain because I was there in winter, and we could only go to a specific level. And as part of my tour, we were promised, we're going to go up the mountain. So instead, we were taken to the simulator.
Oh, wow.
But this simulator was evoking all your senses. There was physical snow, physical rain on top of us, real rain.
Wow.
So it was in the flowers. We went through all the seasons. So you would go over the mountain, but as you go over, the experience is from winter all the way down to summer, to spring, summer, autumn, back to winter.
Yes.
And when we got to spring, all those blossoms, we were smelling it, literally. It was real.
You could smell it.
Yes.
Wow, that's fantastic.
That's amazing. So it was amazing. And the virtual way they presented this, I still get the shivers in my body. Because the virtual way of the flowers and the blossoms was so real. It was like I could touch them.
Yes.
And you were moving the whole time yourself. Your body was in the simulator, your body was moving. So you were not sitting still experiencing it.
Yes.
So there was movement.
That's incredible.
So all I'm bringing up
maybe that's
today,
the future of travel.
And because we, and that's why we're very excited for the young people as well that's joining our journeys, is that there's a group of young people in 2019 that's going to go across the world having amazing experiences, being involved in impact projects of various kinds, meeting interesting people, wise people, interesting people, crazy people, doing amazing performances, but also with virtual technology now, virtual reality technology, we can now share those same experiences with other young people who's not able to do that and who can't afford it.
Yes, that's amazing.
So there's these two worlds now that's busy. Yes. The actual physical real world and this virtual world that
is fantastic.
That one can serve the other one.
Yes, I think technology always has a positive and a negative spin. And as I said before, if you use it in the right way, it's but don't discredit the natural experience.
Did you ever had some some real physical, vibrant physical experience that you could never imagine?
Yes, absolutely. One particularly was recently I did a diving course with a guy by the name of Craig Foster, who was famous for making a movie about an octopus. He spent a year and had quite unique scientific material on new evidence about the octopus. And just going back to what we were talking about, having a virtual experience where your senses can be stimulated. I don't believe that anything is quite as real as the real experience, particularly when you go diving in 9-degree waters with no wetsuit and no apparatus, because the bubbles of the apparatus actually scare the animals away. So you want to be able to attract the sea animals and to have an experience with them. And that is really what he calls primal joy. It's your body is so stimulated from that coldness. Before we went into the water, we did a little meditation and a little setting an intention. Of course, I was with the octopus man, so my intention was to see an octopus. And I couldn't have been more stimulated and in absolute awe when we went down, and you hold your breath, something you can develop through breath work. And you really are what possibly the Bushmen would have experienced in ancient times, of really everything is fired up, all your senses are alive. And then we had that incredible moment where he took an octopus and put it in my hand, and this beautiful little being looked up at me with its eye and took its tentacle out and put it on my arm, almost just like saying hello. That bond, that connection with a wild animal and yourself is nothing like it. There's nothing in this world that actually takes you to a deep, deep part of ourselves that's primal and eternal. And so, yes, the virtual reality is wonderful, because for me, it's giving animals in the zoos a time out, because I think zoos are something of the past. And to have that virtual experience, if you can't have it in a real way, is wonderful. But don't forget to, fire up all the cylinders and go out into nature. And even if you live in a big city, I was recently in London, and my friend goes swimming in a cold pond in the middle of London to stimulate again, to get all the cells working. And that's, just grabbing the opportunity, sitting under a tree in the middle of a big city and really feeling this powerful being behind you. We can't forget nature, because it's part of us. It's part of being alive.
You remind me now some beautiful experiences, and I would actually really invite everybody to share, so beautifully share, is you have to go, and also not have to, we don't have to in our world, but it is a wonder to have a balance between these two types of experiences, to experience everything and anything, and not to neglect the one, because you will lose out, definitely. And the interesting part is, I was visiting Spain in your world 2 or 3 years ago, and a friend of mine from the Netherlands came over, and we went to Gaudi's garden in Barcelona. But there were so many people, and we both love art, but there was just so many people, we wanted to get away. And I saw on the Google map a park in the middle of Barcelona, a small park, but we couldn't find it. So we were walking around these buildings, but we know it's in there somewhere. But there's no entrance to it like you would have with a normal park, because it's all these buildings. And suddenly, my friend sees somebody coming through a small walkway with a child that was swimming. And he said, aha, there must be something here. And we went in there, and there's this beautiful garden. It's really a kids' play park with a pool, because I was there in the summer. It was just amazing.
Wow, that's lovely.
But it was so interesting, because we knew it was in there, not only because Google Maps said it, we could start feeling it as well in our bodies. And our bodies wanted to go there. We wanted to get out, away from all this crazy tourists up and down in the streets in Barcelona. And it's like you say, it's when we actually just take the courage to do something different. Like with this diving experience of yours, I definitely want to try that.
Yes, it's
Because
amazing. I'll take you.
that would be wonderful, because I know my own experience when I did skydiving on my 45th birthday.
Wow.
It was mind-blowing,
Yeah,
mind-blowing.
I bet.
To free fall at 200 kilometers an hour. And then it is
Wow.
just the most amazing feeling, because in the beginning, when you free fall, there's no time. Because
Yes.
gravity is not working yet.
Yes, yes.
And then suddenly you start going down very quickly, very fast. But that is
Wow.
when you just see you like a bird. But what it did for me personally, on a sensory level and on a personal level, was incredible. So guys and girls, I'm not saying go and break your legs doing something crazy, but
No. Well, I swim regularly. I swim in the cold Atlantic every week, and it's changed my life. It's really just to, before I was going and putting my toe in and maybe screaming because it was so cold. Now I swim for an hour in the water, and it's blissful. I mean, you've got it right here, and it's so incredible. I love it. It's I come out, no matter what's happening in my life, I come out there feeling alive. I feel energized and ready for anything. It's wonderful.
now my
And if
Finnish
you don't
friends
live,
do it as well. They do it with a sauna afterwards. They go into
yes,
ice water that's like -3 degrees. They dive
yeah,
into it, and then they come out. They go into a sauna.
yes. And I have friends in Johannesburg who don't have a river or a sea nearby, so they just take in the cold showers. And just the stimulating your body with different sensations is so it makes you come alive again.
Thank
So
you for
it doesn't matter
reminding
where
me.
you are, you can find a way. You can find a way.
Yeah, because I love water. If I'm not in a place where there's water, I usually get frustrated because my body's aching for it,
Yes,
just to be with it. So I'm
me
very
too.
fortunate here now. I'm next to a river where I'm at the moment. Um, and just the hearing of the water at night when I go to
Lovely.
sleep, oh, it's the most amazing thing. It just connects you with
Yeah.
everything around you. You become one with it at some stages. But you have to go out to do it. It won't happen if you sit here in front of the computer or the
You have to go
television.
out.
You have to
You
go.
have to push yourself to just go and do it. Yes. Somebody said once that do something that scares you every now and again. And that's the thing, is that every time I get into that water, I'm facing my fears because I'm going into a wild ocean where there's sharks and there's all kinds of things. And also the cold. The cold is the threshold of facing my inner fear. And once you cross that threshold, something inside of you feels greater than you ever felt, because you've realized that you're more than you are. Your body's so much more than you think it is. It can handle so much more than you give it credit for.
Oh, thank you, Cher. I think everybody must remember you and to contact you if they may contact you afterwards. About your beautiful guest house, but also about these amazing experiences that you've got, that you've had, to come more into yourself. And like you say, to know you more than that you think you are, and you're capable of more than you think you are, especially physically, because we're conditioned with stories about our bodies that's not entirely true, or we just didn't have all the information at the time, but now we're beginning to have all this information about our beautiful bodies and our own abilities. So Cher the singer now. I want to call out the singer in you. I'm not going to ask you to sing for us, but you can do that too if you want to. But what would Cher the singer say to the ones who came more recently?
I won't be singing because I know they can sing a lot better than me. Most of them are singing. So I would say to find your own personal voice, your own personal song, but to realize that that song is connected to all songs and to all beings and plants on this planet and beyond. So when you find your song, know that it's part of everybody's song, and it's very much echoes in everything that you do.
Oh, that's beautiful. I feel it in my body now, as you say it. So my body responds in a very interesting way when something said is the truth. And when I mean by the truth, it's a truth of something we can consider and experience. And when you speak about the song, it's also The soul of the world is your soul.
Mm.
And the soul of the world currently seems to be aching a lot in different ways.
Yes.
On many,
Yeah.
the planet itself, the humans itself, the creatures, plants,
Mm.
everything. And
And
when we start
it's
singing our song and being our song,
mm.
we bring more balance into the whole world.
Yes. When you speak your truth.
And
And
imagine
that's
what the
beyond
world
material.
yeah, and imagine what the world would be like if everybody was just speaking their truth and being it without needing
Yeah.
to for approval or permission or things like or to please others. Just be you and sing your
Yes.
song in whatever way you will express it, because the way you express your song is very different from where I do mine. But it's okay.
Yes. It's
And,
okay.
and that's the beauty of it all. We don't need to sing the same song. And we don't have the
Yeah.
same song.
No.
We were each born with this beautiful, amazing, which we call song, that is very different from the others, but without it, the world will never be what it can be.
Yes. Yes. Like an orchestra, it has all of its own instruments. But ultimately, you want to have the right tune. Yeah, we're using lots of symbolisms, but I think it will be understood that when you go deep within yourself and you search for that truth, which I've spent a lifetime trying to achieve, and really to live it, because it doesn't matter, how much money you got or where you live. What is important is that you are living your truth, whether it's in the work that you do or what you're doing when you come home. All of it should have the same thread of how you behave and how you choose to respect the people around you and the planet and the plants and the animals. We're all in this together, so we all need to realize that we shine together as we dim together. So it's part of our journey to, in this difficult time, to find a way to come together. And I think the youngsters are. I really see a lot of hope in just their reaching out to each other and trying to just be a part of the right consciousness, the right understanding. I mean, it's a very general term to talk about, but I really think we've touched on what makes life worth living and what makes what we could do to actually make the world a better place. Yeah.
Thank you,
So
Cher.
I hope I've shared something inspirational.
No, you have much. And again, if you didn't share this extraordinary journey that our young ones are on, would not be the same.
Yes.
At this time, whoever it is, wherever they are, whoever is going to be drawn to this podcast and watch it and experience it and engage in it is definitely going to be a different person afterwards, because just us hearing different things makes us a different person already, because we get to know about much more when we by ourselves.
Yeah.
So thank you
You're
for
very
that.
interesting to talk to. You're extremely interesting to talk to. I love listening to what you have to say.
Thank you so much, Cher.
Pleasure. Will you send me a link for the
I'll
podcast?
send you a link. And everybody, you're welcome to contact Cher. She said so gracefully. We'll leave your contact details after this podcast.
Yes.
And yes, have a wonderful time, everybody. We see you soon. Goodbye.